Morning, quintessentials. Thank you so much for tuning in. It is Women's Month, as most of you know. Happy Women's Day, Happy Women's Month. Today, we're going to be doing something different. I've invited my grandmother, Ms. D.M, Finca, who is the first Black female lawyer in South Africa, and she will be talking to us and just sharing her journey to becoming a lawyer, what she has learned. But also, I want to frame this interview in a way that we can discuss some of the intricacies that involve the strong Black woman schema. We always hear of imbokodo, but what does it take for us to live the soft life? There had to be people that had to put in the work so that we could live in this comfort. They went above and beyond to secure certain privileges that we now don't even think about because of their hard work and the input that they have made. I will be talking to my grandmother today just to shed some light on the strong Black female schema. I hope you enjoy this segment. Always hear about Black excellence, and it's not as easy as made to sound. So, the first Black woman lawyer in South Africa. So, Granny, welcome to my channel. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Okay, so the first question that I want to ask you is, what is your view of the legal practice now in this era compared to when you first started as a lawyer?
It has improved greatly. There are a lot of young women lawyers nowadays, and the law has changed here and there, but some of these ladies are advocates already. I think the women in South Africa are making great strides in law.
The next question is, what do you think is the biggest challenge facing the legal fraternity right now?
There isn't much, in the sense that in law, gender is not that important. It is the qualification that matters. So there's really, legally and otherwise, there's no distinction between women and men.
What was it like being the first woman, the first Black lawyer in the country, especially during, obviously, the apartheid era?
It was double courage, in the sense that the whites at that time looked down on Black folks. And in my case, it was worse being a woman. But during the course of time, it changed. They realized that in court I was as good as their best people. And in fact, even with whites, there were few white women.
Before you became a lawyer, you were already practicing, you were already in another profession. What profession were you in during that time? And what made you decide to leave that specific profession and decide to become a lawyer?
It was a civil servant. I was a civil servant before I became, in the sense that I worked in courts as a clerk and things like that. After I finished school.
So what made you were you not a teacher before?
I did teach. I did. I was a teacher, high school teacher.
What were you teaching and what grades?
I taught juniors Latin.
Oh, okay.
And Bantu languages. It was Xhosa. I taught Xhosa. And in some cases, I did English for the starters, Form 1 starters, because I was in the high school. I was teaching in the high schools.
And how long were you a teacher for?
It was, I got married on the second year of my teaching. Got married and had a break for a year or so, and I went back now as a married teacher, married woman.
But how long were you teaching for? Do you remember?
It could have been 4 or 5. No, it could have been 3 or 4 years. And I left that and I took up law now, practice as a lawyer, which was until I was about 65.
Oh, wow. And how did you make the transition from being a teacher, a professional teacher, into becoming a lawyer? And what drove you? What made you decide, I think I can be this lawyer and I can be the first Black woman to do it?
Being a teacher meant I could only teach as far as Form 1 up to matric. But being a lawyer, I could go as far as men could go, being a lawyer. And I think, without praising myself, I think I did accomplish that.
Yes.
I was as good as the Black men. Put aside the ones who were LLBs and things like that. But ordinarily, I had no problem at all.
How did you make the shift from being a teacher and a mother and then becoming a lawyer? How easy or how difficult? And did you have support?
Number one, the standard of doing anything. As a teacher, I could teach English. But as a lawyer, it was not a case of having a degree in law. It was a case of being intelligent generally, to be able to cope and help people who were not very well learned, coach them how to get about things, and the English as a Black woman was something I had to prepare very well.
Yeah, to sound eloquent and
the legal terms and things were not in my ordinary course of a junior degree.
So you had to go the extra mile to teach yourself.
Yeah. Because even the courts, I could only manage in senior courts with a senior degree.
And what kind of a support system did you have? Because you say you were married when you were studying to become a lawyer. So how important was your support system during that time?
Fortunately, my husband then was very keen that I progress, because he too, by the time I met him, he had done masters. He had specialized in certain ways, like psychology and things like that.
And then tell us the story about Mr. Oliver Tambo suggesting that you make this transition into law from teaching, especially because of the way things were moving in the apartheid government.
Yeah, apartheid at the time when the apartheid came, it was very difficult because one, the government of the time was not keen. Like Oliver knew that I had gone through my matric with Latin, which was compulsory in law. I had gone through that without any problems. So they recommended me. And I had a good pass in matric.
Which law firm did you practice in? So who were your mentors when you were practicing law?
G.M. Piche. G.M. Piche. That was the man who carried me through.
From when you applied, so where did you study at UNISA? How did you do your degree?
My theory. I did it with, you don't let work twice into the private correspondence.
With who? Unisa?
UNISA, yeah, University of South Africa, yes. I was admitted. But with admissions, you have to go to the Supreme Court for the orals and things.
What did you enjoy the most about practicing law?
I enjoyed lifting up the status of women generally. Because in some cases, even married couples, you would find that they are not happily married, the woman is being abused. And I fought such cases to say that in life, God made us. And as far as that goes, women can be as brilliant, if not more, than men. And that proved to be the case in what I went through.
Is there any particular case that stands out for you during your time while you were practicing law?
I didn't like the idea that women were less intelligent or they couldn't cope well, because they were very bright women who practiced law, and they did very well.
How did you navigate the segregation against black people or black professionals during that time?
Oh, it was almost at its highest that time, black and white. But once the blacks were in practice, they proved themselves to be very intelligent. An example is the first two pronounced black men lawyers were Mr. Mandela, Nelson Mandela, and Oliver Tambo, Mr. Oliver Tambo. They were in partnership. It became very strong. And they helped a lot of black people. Women and men took them on as their what's names and
Proteges.
Yeah, and most of those people, including myself.
Are there any other, did you make any other networks with other black women lawyers while you were coming up?
Oh yes, but there were very few. But those who were in the province where I was, there were very few. They were helpful. Though it's the type of course you have to be not self-independent. You've got to be self-sufficient.
During your time as a lawyer, what was more important to you, winning a case or serving your clients?
It was both serving my client very well, which meant that I had to try my very best to satisfy my clients.
So how does that make you feel being the first black? Do you feel there's some sort of pressure to be perfect? Or is it something that you celebrate, or it's a mixture of both?
I think before us, we're not equipped to do law, in the sense that most women at those times did only 3 years at college. And that, even with that languages and things like that, in law you had to do better than that, like learning Latin, and the other things. and a bit and law, of course, which was different from nursing and teaching.
But do you feel like it was more high pressure for you as a woman to succeed?
No, it wasn't. Though there were very few black women those days, but it was a case of anybody who had gone through matric or a junior degree, like a BA and whatever, they could manage. But
And-
it was not easy, it was tricky, because it was not just English, a question of English or Afrikaans. It was legal matters which went along with habits and customs
Traditions,
or traditions of different species. We had to work together with men who had done honors or masters. And there were very few women. More with blacks, because there was a question of Africans.
Did you ever experience any racist attack at the
There were
court?
plenty. There were plenty. There were plenty, what's names? There were plenty. One time I got a case as an apprentice with some lawyer, and the day I went to, the first time I went to court, the magistrate was, when the case was called, and I stood up to say I'm representing this man, he says, there can't be such a thing. I've never heard of a black woman being an attorney. Come to my office. So we had to adjourn court, and I had to go back to his office, and I told him that no, I was qualified. And he says, do you know any black, he said, I've never heard of a black woman attorney, but I know there are black men attorneys that were, they know me, that phone Mr. Beach, phone Mr. Mandela. What, I don't know. If I can, yes, I'm going to phone those, and he phoned Mr. Beach. And Beach just says, yes, he's not only a lawyer now, he's in my office. He's doing what's names in my office.
Articles.
Articles, yeah.
I also understand that you were singing and touring with King Kong.
Yeah.
So when, during this period, was it while you were studying?
Doing articles.
You were also touring as well.
Yeah.
King Kong, the musical.
That was before I was admitted now as an attorney. I was doing my articles during that time, and I would go with these tours, King Kong. Things.
So was this a local tour? Was it an international tour?
No, local. Local in the sense that we never went as far as overseas. No.
And who were you, who was in that core group when you were working on the musical?
There were few women. Phyllis Mkomo, who used to be a teacher at Hilltown when I was a student also at Hilltown. Yes, Hugh Masikela.
I understand you were also tutoring some of the musicians on the King Kong musical tour. Mr.
Miriam Makeba.
Yes. Caiphus Semenya.
Caiphus Semenya, though he was younger than the group Yabu Masikela. You didn't have to have a degree or what's name. You just had to understand English and to be able to read music.
Okay.
Because the best people those days about Dambuza, nabo yangoba nabanye kane music yena drums nento
Percussion.
percussion good kwezo zinto. All they needed from most women was just a good voice.
What message or legacy do you want to leave behind for aspiring legal professionals, particularly Black women and men?
That more women must take up law, because it's been proven now
That it's possible.
That it is possible, and there are even Black women judges now. To say nothing about the other high positions. Women can go as far as
The
men
Supreme
can
Court.
go.
Okay. Well, there you have it, folks. That was Ms. D.M. Finca, the first Black lawyer. First Black woman lawyer. All right. Thank you so much, ma'am,
Welcome.
for your time and for joining us in this edition, our first guest on our channel. You enjoyed the segment and you'd like to see more guests, please let me know in the comments below. If you have any questions, I can always fill them to Ms. D.M. Finca and she can advise and give us responses. Thank you so much for tuning in, Quintessentials, and we'll see you next time. Cheers.
Cheers.